Hi, once again, this is Brother Teacher. I want to talk to you about high blood pressure for a moment. I'm not a doctor, a medical doctor that is, but I do study the world that I live in. As I've said in time past many, many times up until this present time, I'm a person that studies the world that I live in. And all knowledge comes from the world in which we live. All of the knowledge that we read in books and articles and periodicals and essays and so forth, even videos that we watch, came from someone else, came from someone who discovered it. Doesn't mean that it didn't exist already. The knowledge has always been here. Many of us are just now finding out about it. And oftentimes people in position, people who are renowned for discovering this or that, it's only because the mass or the majority of people just simply did not know about it, or they were not learned in that particular thing, so that it gives this other person or these other individuals status in our eyes. Doesn't mean that they're better than us. It just simply means that they've learned something that we haven't learned. But all of the things that they're learning, we can learn also. So in this particular video, I want to talk about blood pressure. There's a systolic and a diastolic blood pressure. There's the pressure, that's the top number when we do our reading, which is the systolic. That's the pressure of your heart pushing blood from itself to all of the parts of the body. And then there's the diastolic, which is the lower blood pressure of those two numbers. That's the blood coming back or returning to the heart. So the oxygenated blood, if you will. Now, what causes high blood pressure? It is when our system is compromised for some reason. In most instances, I would venture to say, I would believe that it's a combination of things. And many doctors will agree with me on this. One of the things is our diet plays a significant role in our blood pressure. Not just the blood pressure, but a lot of other body functions. But our blood pressure more specifically in this video. So, what you eat. I'll say this. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. You can't eat any and everything that you want to eat just because you like it, just because it looks good, tastes good, smells good. Everything that you consume orally is not necessarily food. And when you go by our modern standards today, when you go into the grocery stores, most of the things that we see in the grocery stores has been altered, adulterated. It's been compromised in terms of food. In your produce section, that's where you're going to mainly get food, because that's real, organic plant life, if you will. So that's one factor in having high blood pressure, because when you have an unbalanced or an improper balanced diet, if you will, and you're not eating the things that your body require, instead of giving your body what you want your body to have, because it tastes good, looks good, smells good again, then your body's going to respond. So we're going to end up oftentimes with what we call plaquing or placation inside our artery walls. Here's an example. I cut this plastic out to represent an artery. Artery is an opening that allows a flow. Let's say this is your artery coming from and or to your heart. It's supposed to be flaccid. So as I begin to say, your arteries have to be flaccid, flexible, soft, malleable, if you will. See this? This is how your arteries are supposed to be naturally. So when blood, by virtue of the pressure that they're moving through your arteries, it causes the walls of these arteries to move, so it's not stiff or rigid. So what happens is when we consume all types of products that are not friendly to our bodies, when it should be actual food, but it's a whole lot of so-called foods or foodstuffs laden with chemicals and various other additives and ingredients that's not natural to our bodies, we cause inflammation. And when you smoke cigarettes, when you take drugs that you shouldn't be taking, should not be. I'm not against drugs, only in and by emergency needs. Only should you be taking pharmaceutical drugs. But for the rest of your life as just a normalcy, no. If there's nothing actually wrong with you and the things that you're encountering in your body, if this is natural, the things that you put in it should be natural, and those natural things that you put in your body should heal your body and strengthen your body, and not have you to be reliant upon artificial things in most instances. So, smoking, of course, is forbidden. Should be. There are a lot of people say, well, do it in moderation. Why are you doing something that's negative in moderation? Don't do it at all. Taking drugs that your body doesn't need, don't do it at all. Putting anything in your body that's unnecessary and not required by your body is going to cause inflammation again, and lack of exercise is going to contribute to that as well. So what happens when you have inflammation in one part of your body? Don't assume that it's just reserved to that one place in your body, in your arteries in this particular instance that we're talking about. It breaks down the walls of the artery. The arterial walls get broken down. And herein lies the problem. When it gets broken down, it becomes sort of brittle. It begins to break down and even crack. And so when your body recognizes that there are abrasions, as it were, inside the arterial walls here, it sends plaque, cholesterol, and it begins to patch those cracks and or those breaks or holes. And guess what happens then? It narrows this diameter here and makes it even much smaller. And when it's smaller, it forces your heart to force blood more strongly through those narrow passageways. Bear with me just for a moment. This is how your artery should look. Give me a second. I think you'll get my point. Now, I'm giving you a very rough example. That's all you need is an example. Look at this now. I lined this with some material to show you what happens when you have plaque in your artery that's building up because of inflammation in your body's trying to compensate by filling those cracks and those crevices with cholesterol, what we call commonly plaque, and it narrows the space inside the artery, which makes it in turn difficult for the blood to pump through that narrow or more narrow space. You see that? Can you imagine your heart trying to pump blood through something really, really small when it wasn't designed for that space, but a larger space? So now you have high blood pressure, and guess what? Prematurely, you're putting this extra load on your body. Now what happens if your habits, your bad habits, that is the smoking, the drugs, and the eating of all of the bad foods that you're eating, and maybe even a lack of nutrition, proper nutrition, causes that inflammation to build and build and build more plaque? And guess what? You're going to end up having a heart attack. Eventually, a heart attack. Yes, you are. Blocking that blood flow. And just because you have plaque in your arteries going to and from the heart, don't think that the plaque is not in your other blood vessels as well, all the way down to your capillaries, which are the smallest blood vessels. So you're going to end up with tingling in your legs, your lower extremities. You're going to end up with pain in your legs as well. You're going to end up with possibly a stroke, because blood vessels are throughout your whole body, because your body has to be served oxygenated blood throughout the entire body. So don't think just because I have plaquing in my arteries leading to and from my heart, that's the only place it is. No, your body is a unit. It is one complete whole, and it all works synergistically. not just exclusive of the other parts. It's all one system, ultimately. So now, what do you do, teacher? What do you do to mitigate this problem? First of all, here we go. Let me stop. Whatever's causing your problem, stop doing what you're doing. You're smoking, stop smoking. That's a good one. If you're eating restaurant foods, processed foods, genetically modified foods, a lot of sugar, which is a killer right there by itself. The list goes on as far as those bad things that you're putting in your bodies and those pharmaceutical drugs that your body does not need, that don't belong there, that your body does not recognize because it's intelligent. It's all intelligent. Stop doing those things. That's the beginning. Now, replace those things with what should have been there in the first place. Proper whole food diet. That's number one. Number two, exercise. Number three, keep stress away from you. The stress that you control. There's stresses that we're going to have in our everyday lives, as we always have had as humanity. Those things you have no control over, but you can learn how to balance those stresses in your life. But the things that you do control them. Those stresses. I cannot be any more emphatic about that. The stresses that you control, get them under control and remove them from your life. It could be relationship stresses, get it under control. It could be a job situation, get it under control. It could be family issues, get it under control. It could be monetary issues as far as you in between jobs and so forth, get it under control. And you will relieve some of that blood pressure issues, So now, one thing that I noticed and that I've researched that is a very important thing that you need to add or include in your diet is turmeric, garlic, cayenne pepper, and ginger, and fresh lemons and limes. If you want to restore the pliability, if you will, or the function of your arteries the way they were intended by nature, and if you want to break down some of those plaques that's already there, put these things in your diet. Eat a whole food diet, not the things that you just simply like the taste of. Sometimes the things that we like are usually those culprits that's killing us. So I'm going to leave you. I'm at work. I have a lot of things to do right now, but I hope I have touched on this subject strongly enough, bouncing back and forth, that you get the point, that you get the real point. I want you to live as long and as happy and as prosperous of a life as you possibly can. I'm trying to do the same thing for myself because I have a family that wants me to be around. I have followers on different platforms that want me to be around. I have students that want me to be around, friends and associates that want me to be around. Why should I cheat myself by killing myself by something that I control, can control, and should control, as you should as well? That was it. And that was all. This is Brother Teacher. So long.